The whisper that changed everything. The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of the Montgomery estate, its golden light filtering through tall windows that overlooked perfectly manicured gardens. Sarah Montgomery sat in her wheelchair by the largest window, watching the gardeners tend to her mother's prized rose bushes. At 24, she had grown accustomed to observing life from a distance, her world confined to the elegant prison of her family's mansion. For 7 years, now Sarah's legs had refused to carry her. The accident that had stolen her ability to walk had also taken something deeper, her connection to the world beyond these walls. Her father, William Montgomery, CEO of Montgomery Industries, had spared no expense in seeking treatments. The best doctors in New York, specialists from Switzerland, experimental therapies from Germany, all had examined Sarah's case with furrowed brows and apologetic smiles. "I'm afraid there's nothing more we can do," had become a familiar refrain, echoing through the mansion's hallways. Sarah's fingers traced the cool glass of the window as she watched a red cardinal land on the garden fountain. The bird's freedom to move, to fly, to explore, stirred something restless within her chest. She had once been like that cardinal, full of energy and dreams. Before the accident, she had planned to travel the world, to study marine biology, to dive in coral reefs and document underwater ecosystems. Now those dreams felt as distant as the stars. The sound of her father's footsteps interrupted her quiet contemplation. William Montgomery entered the sunroom with his usual brisk efficiency, his expensive suit impeccable despite the early hour. His face, however, carried the weight of years spent watching his daughter's spirit slowly dim. "Sarah, darling," he said softly, settling into the chair beside her. "I've been thinking about what Dr. Harrison said yesterday." Sarah turned from the window, meeting her father's concerned gaze. Dr. Harrison, their latest specialist, had suggested they consider accepting Sarah's condition as permanent. The word permanent had hung in the air like a heavy cloud, suffocating hope. "I know what he said, Dad," Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe he's right. Maybe it's time to stop hoping." William's jaw tightened. As a man who had built an empire through determination and refusing to accept defeat, his daughter's resignation pained him more than any business setback ever could. "I have one more idea," he said carefully. "It might sound unconventional, but I've heard about someone different." Sarah raised an eyebrow. Her father rarely dealt with anything unconventional. "There's a farmer about 2 hours from here," William continued. "His name is Thomas Chen. He's not a doctor, but people in his community speak of him as having unusual abilities. They say he has helped people when traditional medicine has failed." The skepticism was clear in Sarah's expression. After years of disappointment, she had learned to guard her heart against false hope. "Dad, we've tried everything. What could a farmer possibly do that the best doctors in the world couldn't?" William leaned forward, taking his daughter's hand in his. "I don't know, sweetheart. But what do we have to lose?" 3 days later, Sarah found herself being wheeled down a dirt path that wound through acres of corn and soybeans. The Montgomery family's luxury SUV looked absurdly out of place, parked beside a weathered red barn. The air here smelled different, clean and earthy, filled with the scent of growing things and honest work. Thomas Chen emerged from behind the barn, wiping soil from his hands with a faded cloth. He was a man in his 60s, with silver threading through his black hair and deep lines around his eyes that spoke of countless hours under the sun. His clothes were simple, worn jeans and a flannel shirt, but there was something in his gentle manner that immediately put Sarah at ease. "Miss Montgomery," Thomas said, his voice carrying a slight accent from his childhood in rural China. "Thank you for coming." William stepped forward, his businessman's instincts making him want to take control of the situation. "Mr. Chen, we appreciate you agreeing to see Sarah. As I mentioned on the phone, we've exhausted all medical options. Thomas nodded thoughtfully, but his attention was focused entirely on Sarah. He approached her wheelchair slowly, as if not wanting to intrude on her space. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward her hands. Sarah hesitated for a moment, then extended her hands. Thomas took them gently in his own, hands that were calloused from years of farm work, but surprisingly soft in their touch. He closed his eyes for a long moment, and Sarah felt an unexpected warmth spreading from where their skin touched. When Thomas opened his eyes, there was a knowing look in them that made Sarah's heart skip. "Your body remembers how to walk," he said quietly, "but your mind has forgotten how to believe." The words hit Sarah with unexpected force. Tears she had held back for months suddenly spilled down her cheeks. "I want to believe," she whispered. "I've wanted to believe for so long, but I'm so tired of being disappointed." Thomas squeezed her hands gently. "Belief isn't about expecting miracles, child. It's about being willing to take the first step, even when you can't see the path." He released her hands and moved behind her wheelchair. "Close your eyes," he instructed. "Feel the earth beneath us. Feel the life growing all around us. Everything in nature knows how to heal, how to grow, how to become whole again." Sarah closed her eyes, breathing in the rich scent of the farm. Thomas began to speak in a low, rhythmic voice, not quite English, not quite Chinese, but something that seemed to bridge both worlds. His words washed over her like a gentle stream, and she felt something shift deep within her body. "Now," Thomas whispered, so quietly only she could hear. "Let me try." He placed his hands on her shoulders, and Sarah felt a warmth unlike anything she had experienced since before the accident. It started as a gentle tingling in her spine and spread slowly downward, like morning sunlight creeping across the landscape. "Try to stand," Thomas said softly. Sarah's eyes flew open. "I can't." "You can," he interrupted gently. "Not because of me, but because you never truly lost the ability. You only lost the courage to try." With trembling hands, Sarah gripped the arms of her wheelchair. Her father stepped forward instinctively, but Thomas held up a gentle hand, asking him to wait. Sarah pushed herself up slowly, her legs shaking with the effort. For a moment she wobbled, her body remembering and forgetting simultaneously. Then, miraculously, she was standing. The world looked different from this height. The cornstalks seemed taller, the sky seemed bigger, and the possibilities seemed endless. "I'm standing," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'm actually standing," Thomas smiled, his eyes crinkling with joy. "The healing was always within you, Miss Sarah. Sometimes we just need someone to remind us of our own strength." Sarah took her first tentative step, then another. Each movement was careful, deliberate, but undeniably real. Her father wept openly, years of worry and grief transforming into overwhelming gratitude. As the afternoon sun began to set over the farm, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Sarah walked slowly through Thomas's garden. Each step was a celebration, each breath a prayer of thanksgiving. The millionaire's daughter had indeed found her miracle, not in expensive treatments or cutting-edge technology, but in the quiet wisdom of a humble farmer who understood that sometimes the most profound healing comes not from fixing what is broken, but from remembering what was never truly lost. Thomas watched from his porch as the Montgomery family prepared to leave, Sarah walking slowly but steadily to their car. The farmer smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning of Sarah's journey back to the life she thought she had lost forever.